I'm 28, female, and I have a younger sister, Sarah, who is 26. She has always been the golden child of our family. Growing up, she was doted on by our parents, who always seemed to prioritize her needs and desires over mine. Whether it was because she was the baby of the family or just naturally more outgoing and charming, Sarah got away with just about everything. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but she has always been a little spoiled. She's the kind of person who expects everything to revolve around her, and for the most part, it usually does. She's always had a way of getting what she wants, and she's never had to face serious consequences for her actions. It's just how things have always been in our family dynamic. Sarah has been with her fiancé, Jake, who is 29, for about 3 years. They met through mutual friends, and he's a genuinely nice guy, honest, hardworking, and from what I could see, totally in love with her. He's the type of guy who would bend over backward to make Sarah happy. For a while, I thought they had the perfect relationship. I've been with my boyfriend, Tom, who is 30, for 2 years, and we were crazy in love and planning our future together. Fast forward to about a week before Sarah's big day, the entire family was in wedding mode, and the stress levels were through the roof. We were running all around, making last-minute arrangements, dealing with dress fittings, flower deliveries, and everything else that comes with planning a huge wedding. It was hectic, to say the least. One evening, I came home earlier than expected after a long day of helping out with wedding prep. I was exhausted and just wanted to relax for a bit. When I walked into my apartment, I heard hushed voices coming from the living room. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe Tom had friends over. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't his friends there. On my couch was my sister, Sarah, making out with Tom. I froze, completely shocked and nauseated. It felt like I had just been punched in my stomach. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. My sister and my boyfriend tangled up on the couch, like they didn't have a care in the world. It was so out of nowhere, so surreal, that I just stood there for what felt like an eternity before they even noticed I was in the room. When they finally did see me, they both jumped apart like they'd been electrocuted. Sarah immediately started stammering, trying to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I just turned around and walked out. My whole world felt like it had been flipped upside down. After I left, I went to a friend's house to cool off. I didn't know what to do, but I knew one thing, I wasn't going to let them get away with this. When I finally calmed down, I confronted Tom later that night. His excuse. He said it just happened, that it didn't mean anything, and that they had a couple of drinks and that's how it happened. Seriously, no remorse, no, I'm sorry. After the years we spent together, I was furious. We broke up on the spot, and I kicked him out of the apartment. As for Sarah, she texted me 1,000 times, apologizing, claiming it was a mistake, and that she was drunk. She said it was the stress of the wedding. She begged me not to say anything to anyone, especially to Jake. She said it would ruin her life, that it was a one-time thing, and that she couldn't bear to lose him. She begged for my silence, saying I should understand since we were sisters. But here's the thing, I couldn't let it go. This wasn't just some random person, this was my sister, my own flesh and blood, betraying me with my boyfriend just days before her wedding. And Jake, he didn't deserve to be kept in the dark. He deserved to know what was going on before he committed to spending the rest of his life with someone who clearly wasn't as devoted to him as he thought. After a couple of sleepless nights, I made my decision. I wasn't going to keep this a secret. Jake had the right to know the truth before making a huge life decision. So I reached out to him. We met at a coffee shop, and I was brutally honest with him. I told him everything, how I'd come home to find Sarah and Tom making out on my couch, how they tried to brush it off, and how Sarah had begged me not to say anything. I expected Jake to be angry or upset, but he was surprisingly calm. He listened to everything I had to say without interrupting. And when I was done, he just nodded, thanked me for telling him, and left. I didn't know what to make of his reaction. Part of me thought maybe he didn't believe me, or that he was going to sweep it under the rug because he loved Sarah too much to let this ruin the wedding. I even started to feel a little guilty for bringing it up at all, wondering if I'd made a mistake by getting involved. The days leading up to the wedding were tense. Sarah had no idea that I'd told Jake, and she was acting as if everything was fine. She continued with her last-minute wedding preparations, still texting me every now and then, pretending nothing had happened. I kept my distance, feeling more and more uneasy with every passing day. Finally, the wedding day arrived. It was a beautiful ceremony held at a picturesque venue with all of our family and friends in attendance. Everything looked perfect on the surface, and Sarah was beaming in her wedding dress, totally unaware of the storm brewing beneath. The ceremony went off without a hitch, vows were exchanged, rings were slipped onto fingers, and Sarah and Jake were officially married. But then, during the reception, Jake stood up to give his speech. At first, it was the typical groom's speech, thanking everyone for coming, talking about how lucky he felt to have found Sarah, blah blah blah. But then his tone shifted. "I want to take a moment," Jake said, his voice calm but firm, "to acknowledge that this week hasn't been easy. In fact, it's been incredibly challenging because I learned something about Sarah that shocked me." The room fell silent, you could hear a pin drop. I looked over at Sarah, and her smile was frozen in place, confusion starting to spread across her face. "I found out," Jake continued, "that just a week ago, Sarah was kissing someone else, someone who wasn't me. And not just someone else, but her own sister's boyfriend. And I had to ask myself if I could still go through with this wedding, knowing what I know." Murmurs started spreading throughout the crowd. Sarah's face went pale, I could see her whispering something to him, but Jake kept speaking. In the end, Jake said, "I decided I deserved better. I deserve someone who respects me in our relationship, who respects her family. So, Sarah, this is where I say goodbye." With that, Jake calmly set the microphone down and walked out of the reception hall. The entire room erupted into chaos. Sarah was left standing at the front of the room in complete shock. She tried to run after him, but he was already gone. Her big day, her perfect wedding, was over in an instant. As you can imagine, the aftermath has been a complete mess. Sarah's furious with me, blaming me for ruining her wedding in her life. She's convinced that if I hadn't said anything to Jake, everything would have been fine. My parents are divided. My mom is on Sarah's side, of course, saying that I should have stayed quiet and let things work themselves out. My dad, on the other hand, thinks I did the right thing, that Jake deserved to know the truth. As for Jake, he's cut all ties with Sarah. He's moved out of their apartment and isn't returning her calls. He reached out to thank me again for telling him the truth, and while I feel terrible for the pain he's going through, I know he made the right decision. No one deserves to start a marriage with that kind of betrayal hanging over them. But I'm still left wondering if I went too far. Was I wrong for telling Jake about what I saw? Should I have stayed out of it and let them figure it out on their own? Part of me feels like I did the right thing by being honest, but another part wonders if I just destroyed my sister's life over a single mistake. So, read it, am I the a-hole? OP is 100% not the a-hole. OP's sister betrayed OP and her fiancé, and OP had every right to tell him the truth. Jake deserved to know who he was marrying, and Sarah's actions show a total lack of respect for both OP and her fiancé. It's her own fault for ruining her wedding, not OP's. She made her choices, and now she has to deal with the consequences. And now let's hear the community's opinion, not the a-hole. Your sister sounds like she's been shielded from the consequences of her actions for too long. She thought she could get away with betraying not just Jake but you and still have her perfect wedding. I'm glad you told Jake. He deserved to know the truth before committing to someone who clearly didn't respect him or the relationship. Jake handled that situation like a boss. He didn't blow up before the wedding but instead waited for the right moment to address it publicly and respectfully. Your sister can blame you all she wants, but she's the one who kissed your boyfriend and broke Jake's trust. Actions have consequences, and now she's learning that the hard way. Not the a-hole that I can't believe your sister thought you'd just keep quiet about something like that. She betrayed you and Jake, and now she's upset that she has to face the fallout. That's wild. You did the right thing by being honest. Starting a marriage based on lies and deceit is a disaster waiting to happen. Jake dodged a bullet, thanks to you. For context, my ex-fiancé and I broke up last year because he was insecure over my relationship with my ex at the time. My ex at that time was really close with me because we were literally best friends growing up, and our relationship ended on good terms. My ex-fiancé got upset because I wanted him invited to our wedding as my male maid of honor, of sorts, because he was literally my best friend. My ex was bitter because he thought I was holding on to feelings or something, so we broke off our engagement, literally a month before we got married. It was a really bitter fight, and in the aftermath, he sarcastically told me that I could keep the ring, so my best friend could use it to propose to me. Just for the record, I didn't have the heart to sell the ring. It was a really beautiful piece that we made together. One of our mutual good friends is a jeweler, so her and I designed the ring together. It was a really personal piece with flower engravings and my favorite gemstones, etc. My ex-fiancé proposed to me without a ring, we made the ring later. He had an engagement ring, similar in style, as well. Flash forward to the next few months, and me and my best friend rekindled our relationship. Just to be clear, during my relationship with my ex-fiancé, we did not have feelings for each other. It was strictly platonic. But about a week ago, he proposed to me with the ring, saying that he knew I really liked the piece. I accepted and posted a picture on Instagram to celebrate. My ex-fiancé then called me today and basically berated me over the phone about how ducked up it was that I accepted that engagement ring and how bad he looks online. Then he asked for the ring back. I told him to duck off because it's literally mine, and I can do with it what I please. But I'm starting to have second thoughts now concerning everything because I do admit it's kind of weird. Am I the a-hole? Edit, I do wish people would stop assuming I cheated on my ex-fiancé when they don't know the people involved in this story personally or how our relationships worked. General consensus says that I'm the a-hole, and I'll take that judgment, but I do wish the judgment could be given without people's opinions of a possible affair that they formed off a narrow view of all of us as people. Me and my current fiancé were platonic, at least on my end, and I think so on his end too, but I can't speak for him because I was head over heels for my ex-fiancé at the time. However, I understand that your personal opinions regarding me outweigh the reality of what actually happened. Be kind to one another. Yep, this one right here, it's my ex-fiancé's fault our relationship broke up because he was just so super jealous and insecure for no reason at all. And the fact that I then hooked up with the guy he was insecure about a few months later, eventually marrying him, is totally a coincidence. Ex-fiancé dodged a bullet, yes. The a-hole returned the ring, and have your new man show he's the man and buy a ring himself, instead of letting another man pull the weight of the purchase for him. I personally feel like, wow, what a bum, he proposed to me with a ring another man bought. Some lame crap, yes, the a-hole. I think you know that DX's statement about having your current fiancé propose with the ring was obviously not serious and factious. Despite your protests, it seems very clear that you did still have feelings for your current fiancé while you were in your previous relationship. Being that you are now together, it was enough for him to call off the engagement. Being in a serious partnership myself, I would think that most people would want to assuage the feelings of the person they love, but it seems like all you did was involve your current fiancé more and more in your relationship with your ex, at his extreme discomfort and ultimately at the expense of your relationship. It's a slap in the face to your ex, which I don't know if that matters to you at all, but if you were my friend, I would say that yes, the a-hole, the ring was a symbol of the love you and your ex shared. It wasn't just a random piece of jewelry you really liked, it almost seemed spiteful to be perfectly honest. If I saw that on Instagram as a spectator, I would think, oh yeah, she was totally cheating on X, because it just seems like you're going, We showed you, X. I'm not sure where to start with this, but to put it bluntly, my father's girlfriend and I have never gotten along. When I turned 15, I got my first job, and I worked the crap out of that job. I made over $15,000 a year there, just working part-time. I got a raise and promotion and started making around $20,000 the next year. Before I went off to college, I had around $25,000 in my account. The issue is that the account was opened when I was a minor, therefore, it was a joint account, as she had stated she was the legal guardian to monitor and help manage my account before I was set to go to college and no longer a minor. My father's girlfriend took all of the funds from the account and put them into another joint account at a financial credit union. It was under her name primarily, then mine, but she never informed me that she was going to open this account. She also happened to have forged my signature to open this account at the credit union and took all of my college savings from my original commercial high school checking and savings and threw them into this account on multiple occasions. I discussed with both my father and his girlfriend that I was not okay with this, it made me uncomfortable, and I did not trust her. They proceeded to ignore me and gave me no access to the savings account at the credit union. I went to the credit union, requested my account number, and wanted to check the balance. They seemed to have emptied the account. I have all of my pay stubs to prove that the money in the account was provided by me. I have all of the documentation of the forgery of my signature, the transfers that were made without my knowledge, and recordings of phone calls where I begged for my money back. They denied me any chance of ever seeing that money. What do I do? I can't go to small claims court due to the amount surpassing the maximum, according to New York City state laws. I know I will have to seek out an attorney, but what do I file for? Theft. Is there a proper legal term for what they've done? This is my first edit, as I predict there will be more to come. My father's girlfriend has done this before. Her own son, who was the oldest child, went through the same situation. She set up his first bank account with him, a commercial joint high school checking and savings account, after he found work. As soon as he was to leave for college, she transferred all of his savings to a separate account at the same credit union without his knowledge. He figured he had no way to combat the scenario, as she was actually his birth mother, and he was much closer to her than myself. Unfortunately, he later took his own life. The rationale being that he was crapped out of luck, with no money, bad grades, no friends, and no support. There is a pattern, but I can't necessarily provide proof other than screenshots of text that this has occurred before. This is my second edit. In hindsight, my defense of myself was weak. I was a kid, I was being gaslit, manipulated, verbally berated, and bashed at every corner. Anything that I did while living there was because I was threatened or coerced into doing so. As I started prepping for college, I stopped agreeing with them, and for that, I got kicked out. Please understand that while you type out your response, I was a kid and didn't know any better, and I am still struggling to figure all of this out myself. I posted because I'm still just figuring this adult stuff out, and I'm trying to take my life back and to get my money out of their hands. I'm not a lawyer, and this is messy. Your options are going to be determined by what type of accounts these are. Were the original account a joint account with your dad's girlfriend as an adult signer to guarantee it, then legally she would have equal right to the funds, and could take them at will. If it was a minor account, then it would have been titled in her name for your benefit, and she can be held legally accountable if she uses the funds for something other than you. It's not easy, though, and you'll need to get a lawyer involved. The same is also true of the second account, and the forging of your signature makes it even messier. I would suggest starting by contacting the fraud department of the first bank. You want to get a copy of all the statements of the second account before alerting the credit union, because as soon as you tell them it's a forged signature, you'll probably lose access to it. You haven't mentioned your mom, but hopefully, you have an adult family member, mom, grandparent, or aunt or uncle who can help you navigate the legalities. For the amount of money involved, it's worth getting an attorney, and most will give you a free consult. Bring copies of any and all bank statements you have with you. My wife and I were married 3 months ago. Edit together 2 years, we've been trying to have a baby. Recently, we've been planting the seeds, fertilizing the ground, and whatnot. Yesterday, my wife had a positive pregnancy test, and naturally, we were ecstatic. We went to my parents' house this morning because we wanted to announce the good news. But we met with trouble. My sister had found out her fiancé was cheating on her, and when she confronted him, he admitted to it and broke up with her, telling her she didn't satisfy him. It was all such a sudden shock to her, it had come out of nowhere. She really was in love with him and looking forward to getting married. She had been excited about getting married and having a family for so long. Now, she was on the kitchen table, crying her eyes out, and my parents were beside her, comforting her. I had no idea this had all happened, and they told me. I told my sister she's so much better off without him, and she's still very young and has plenty of time anyway. She was in this absolutely miserable state. It was obviously no mood for a happy announcement on our part, especially one that would just rub in my sister's heartbreak over being cheated on and dumped. My wife said, "Well, we have some news that might cheer you up." I instantly said no and shook my head at her, telling her to cut it. So she did and went quiet for a while, like half an hour. My sister was still crying and blowing her nose and everything, still, and then my wife again started. I issued my hand for her to stop, but she went ahead and made the oh-so-wonderful announcement. What is wrong with her? It's the absolute worst timing. My sister just looked up with her red eyes and gave her the evil eye, stood up, slammed the chair, and went upstairs. My parents were looking at my wife and just shaking their heads at her, like, "What's wrong with you?" My wife just said, "What's her problem?" and still had this big smile on her face from her announcement. I told her she shouldn't have said it. Then, my sister was clearly really sad about her relationship ending, and my wife just rubbed salt in her wounds by announcing a success in our relationship, namely, her pregnancy. I told my wife maybe she should go apologize, but she insisted she had done nothing to apologize for and refused. She was like, "We agreed we were coming here to announce our pregnancy." I told her, obviously, that was before I saw the situation. It was insensitive and inappropriate. She just couldn't understand why not. I told her I would be staying there at my parents' house for the afternoon because, obviously, my sister was going through a rough period. She drove home, and I stayed there for most of the day with my family, mainly comforting them and offering a shoulder to cry on during an obviously very sad day. My parents said to me, "Congratulations on your wife's pregnancy," but only quietly and privately, away from my sister's earshot. My dad said he was proud of me, which really meant a lot to me. I apologized to both of them sincerely for my wife's terrible timing, and they accepted my apology. I went to comfort my sister, and she also congratulated me on the pregnancy, prompting me to again apologize for my wife's atrocious timing. I told her how very sorry I am about the whole thing. When my wife came to pick me up later to go back home, I trusted I was leaving her in safe hands back at home. I explained to my wife why I thought the timing was off and that we should have delayed our announcement to them, but she said she just couldn't understand. She has no idea why she's done anything wrong, and I tried to suggest to her that maybe she should apologize because they were all really hurt, but she wouldn't have any of it. What is wrong with her? What should I do? She refuses to see why it was wrong or recognize how her timing was horrible and hurt my sister and refuses to apologize. What the hell is wrong with her? What should I do about this? It sounds like your wife doesn't have a great ability to empathize. Might be hormones, though, that seems like a cop-out. However, some people just cannot put themselves in someone else's shoes. Maybe she's one of those people. It could be that she was badly socialized and didn't learn to care for other people, or it could be her personality. I'm honestly not sure what you can do about it, other than keep talking to her about it. Is this a one-off thing, or is she always at the center of everything? Did you know her well before you got married? Frankly, I would be just as upset as you are. The first red flag is that she said it when she shouldn't have, the second is that she doesn't understand anyone else's reaction. She's still very young, and perhaps nothing upsetting has happened to her. Maybe she'll become more emotionally mature with more life experience. But if she doesn't see her behavior as problematic, getting her to change would be very hard. Sorry, I don't really have any good suggestions other than to keep communicating. So, I was supposed to get married tomorrow and go to a honeymoon in Santa Marta on Monday. Well, I found out the duckhead had been cheating on me with my ex-friend for about a month, and I broke it off. I planned to go alone to the honeymoon or with a friend, but my sister approached me and asked if she could have them. She is a mother of 3 and hasn't had a vacation in almost 6 years. She eloped with her husband because of tax reasons, and they haven't been on a honeymoon. I feel conflicted. I love my sister, but it would hurt to give my honeymoon to another couple that is happy. I don't know if I'm wallowing in self-pity, but some insight would be appreciated. My sister is not selfish people. She approached me and said that she understands if it's not possible, but if she could have my honeymoon, for the reason stated, she was very respectful. It's okay to feel conflicted and not want her to have it, it was yours, however. Ask yourself if you actually did go on the trip, either alone or with friends, would you honestly enjoy yourself? I know I would not be able to enjoy any part of it, since I'd be thinking, I could have been doing X with him. With every activity, even just chilling at a pool, I think it would hurt more to be in the place we planned to honeymoon, even with friends present. It's still not the same. If you think you'd feel this way, then maybe let her have it. Don't think of it as you giving her your honeymoon, think of it as you gifting her a vacation for all her help over the years. Think of it as something good that came from this whole mess. However, if you think you could truly enjoy the trip and want to go, that's totally valid too. Just don't let your grief stop everyone from going on a lovely holiday. Update: I decided that my sister would go to my honeymoon. I just went to her place, and she actually cried when I told her she could go. I feel much better now, but the husband insisted that he pay at least my flight if I want to get away with my friends.